So, Jez, you know how we like to, on this podcast, kind of give people the benefit of the doubt?
Absolutely.
When there's a pylon, don't just race to join in. Try to approach things with a bit of compassion. Well, I was tested on that this week, Jez. There was a letter written in the Times of London by the Rev. Jonathan Aitken. Sir, could it be time to start treating Prince Andrew with a touch of mercy? Whatever his mistakes, he must now be in the depths of brokenness and torment. Anyone who's been through smaller experiences of vilification knows the precious value of those who extend a word or two of kindness, which is true. So even in the eye of the storm, let Prince Andrew hear a few still small voices of human compassion. Jez.
Look, my response to that would be these are allegations which he's denied, so there's nothing to forgive him for, no?
I would say there's a lot of smoke and there's a lot of allegations that have not been disproven.
Yeah, true.
And
he's denied them.
And he's denied them. And there's a very close association with a pedophile and sex trafficker who it has just been discovered he lied about. So, to me, there's so many more questions of accountability, of transparency, there's a thing called himpathy that Kate Mann, the philosopher,
I've never heard of this.
coined. And it is how people
I know where it's going.
People feel sorry for sexual perpetrators, and especially when they're men of high standing and high status, they start to think, oh, that would be awful to have everyone say that about you. Oh, that would be terrible to have assaulted someone and stand there accused and in the glare of the world's spotlight. And I think empathy can actually be quite dangerous. You know why? We take the spotlight away and the scrutiny away from what happened to these women. Why are they saying these things? What are their stories? And instead we go, oh, that must be so hard to lose your status.
And as far as Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew are concerned, there is still a lot we don't know about the scale of what took place.
Yeah, and there's an alarming amount we still actually do know.
I'm Jeremy Fernandez in Sydney on Gadigal land.
And I'm Julia Baird, and this is Not Stupid, where we talk about the things fizzing through your feeds, the things that are kind of driving you crazy or you're trying to understand better.
And later in the show, Jules, I want to talk about a new survey that's come out from a group of Liberal women. I'll tell you more about it later, but it coincides perfectly with the identity crisis that the coalition finds itself in right now and possibly being targeted by One Nation to get defectors across. Famously this week, Barnaby Joyce, speculated to be moving to One Nation. At the time of recording, nothing's happened yet, but it's creating a lot of discussion about who the coalition, who the Liberal Party really are.
All right, Jess, we need to talk about Prince Andrew.
There is a lot to say. He doesn't particularly want us to be talking about him, but this keeps coming up again and again and again.
I don't care. I have lost all patience with this prince. I really have.
With the royal family too and their handling of it?
Yeah. This is a really, really alarming thing. As I said, a sex trafficking ring involving incredibly powerful people that have been excused and it's been dismissed, it's been denied. We've seen woman after woman come out, give her testimony, end up broken, tell stories of just a completely heinous powerlessness and abuse.
So tell me about the source of your cynicism, given that Prince Andrew has repeatedly denied these allegations and yet, as you say, there's a lot of smoke around what took place.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about what has happened most recently. Now, we know that he did, when he was last bumped back from some of his titles and actually a settlement was made, which was £12 million.
To Virginia Giuffre, the accuser.
Yep, and he said there was no admission of guilt. He's paying her a heck of a lot of money. Now, at that time, he did a interview with Emily Matlas, remember, the BBC, the British journalist. And in it he said, the reason I went and stayed with a man who'd been convicted of sex trafficking was because I'm too honourable a person. I had to tell him but face to face. I couldn't tell him by text message. So I went and stayed with him. They were photographed walking around Central Park and then ended up staying for 4 days. then went back.
And they had a financial relationship too, didn't they?
Well, he was financially supporting Sarah Ferguson.
Yeah.
He lent her a lot of money. And as it's turned out, Sarah Ferguson came out in public and was like, of course, who was formerly the Duchess of York, she no longer has that title, came out and was condemning him in public, and then wrote him an email saying, I'm terribly sorry, I had to say that. You were a true and good and whatever friend, the best of friends. And he's lent her like tens and tens of thousands of dollars over time, I think is a conservative estimate. What we know now, though, is that Prince Andrew was in contact with Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, he emailed him on the day after a photograph of Virginia Giuffre, who had been in the employ of Jeffrey Epstein for some years. There was a photo of Prince Andrew with his arm around her at Ghislaine Maxwell's house.
And she was 16 at the time?
17, I think. I think she was first employed at 16 when he was hired from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago, where Virginia's father worked. Now, Virginia has said that I'll get to her recollections in a moment, but let's just go back to that. The day after that photograph was published on the front page, Prince Andrew writes an email to Jeffrey Epstein and says, well, we're in this together now. Let's stay in close touch and we'll go out and play again soon. It now turns out that he got his personal protective security personnel to try to do a job on Virginia Giuffre, gave her the name and her social security number. We don't know how he got that. To try to dig up some dirt, he said there had been criminal charges, which there were none. Now, the Metropolitan Police are currently investigating this.
Whether they were enrolled in an effort to discredit.
Completely inappropriate. Yep, a woman
Virginia
who was claiming
Giuffre,
sexual assault and sex trafficking. So we know that he lied about contacts. The actual tenor of the email is pretty creepy, and we know there's lots of back and forth of how do we get her? How do we discredit this woman?
So that all coincides with the posthumous publication of a memoir by Virginia Giuffre.
Yes.
Now, we should explain that she died earlier this year as a result of suicide, having been in a car accident some weeks before. So this is why it's in the news again, and why there's more scrutiny now on the royal family, on Prince Andrew, and the titles that he holds, right? So this is where it's sort of said that he's given up some of his royal titles. How significant is that to you, that he's sort of stepped back from the royal family, is no longer a working royal, and has relinquished some of his titles?
Good. Overdue. Like, well overdue. We know there's fraction within that family. We know that Prince William, for example, is enraged by the situation due to all reporting and wants him out of the royal family, and he won't be invited to Christmas anymore. This is a grave problem for the royal family.
It also doesn't seem that much of a sacrifice, though, giving up your, little titles over here, which neither of us have.
We think they're little titles. Yeah, exactly. What Knight of the Garter, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean anything to us.
I don't even know what that means.
Right? You can get around in a fancy hat and maybe that's status, and think that just the whole question is there a system that has protected you? And men in these positions often get protected, and the women get vilified and discredited and so on. Where has his money come from? Why hasn't he actually paid rent for 2 decades at least?
And the question I have, who else was involved?
Exactly.
Who else was involved? Who were the other victims?
Exactly.
How are they doing? What redress are they receiving from having all this covered up?
I mean, we're still trying to get the full Epstein files.
Yeah.
And we're still, what we're dealing with is this like global erosion of trust in public officials, and and some of which stems from some quite outlandish stories about pedophilia. And yet, what have we got now? Billionaires, princes, allegedly, presidents, allegedly, all tied up in this, and we don't have enough information. So, I think what's been heartbreaking is to see Virginia Giuffre's memoir come out. The woman she co-wrote it with has been speaking, kind of on her behalf. It is a really, really sad tale of a woman that she said that she was abused by her father in it, which he denies. But she's had obviously, just a kind of a a very horrific experience with sexual violence through her life, but you could see how, if that were true, how she was then vulnerable to someone like Jeffrey Epstein. Her allegations when it comes to Prince Andrew are that she was kind of palmed off by Epstein to his friends all the time when they wanted her. And she talks about how eminent they were and how high status a lot of these men were.
And that they arrived with a sense of entitlement to
Complete
her body,
entitlement,
right?
which is exactly what she says about Prince Andrew. Like, he was friendly enough, but it was like he felt that his having sex with me was his birthright. She claims there were 3 occasions in which they had sex, and on the 3rd, it was almost like an orgy. There were Epstein, like 8 or so other women involved, and she says they were underage and so on. Now, I think part of the problem has been the sense that the palace has been from the beginning trying to protect and having this incremental shift in, you're not the Duke anymore. But by the way, Prince Andrew will remain a prince.
Okay, so tell me about the prince thing, because yes, he is still a prince.
Yes.
Can you not become a prince by virtue of poor conduct, or is he just a prince because that's how he was born to a queen?
George V, 1917, set down a law to say once a prince, always a prince.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's a lot of carry-on in Parliament at the moment about it, especially from opposition MPs who are saying, in Britain, who are saying, mate, like...
It should be up to the House.
This should all be stripped.
Yeah.
How can you hold on to this?
Yeah.
How can you hold on to this enormous mansion? How can you have anything at the public whim when you're under police investigations, when all this evidence keeps coming out? And it is pretty horrifying to see how directly he had lied about his conduct and about his links with Epstein. Now, and that's what we're having is this material is coming out of other cases about Epstein and other depositions, right? So there's another email which has just come out, which is Epstein introducing Andrew to a second alleged abuse and trafficking victim. So he was a convicted sex offender by this stage, Epstein, already. So he wrote to tell Prince Andrew, I have a friend who I think you might enjoy having dinner with. Her name is redacted. She'll be in London on these dates. Prince Andrew responds, of course. Will she be bringing a message from you? Please give her my contact details to get in touch.
It's really gross.
By the way, that last orgy that she says that she was part of, she says she got pregnant in as well, but then ended up miscarrying. So she's been, look, it's horrific. Okay, here's where I land on it. While this is unresolved, while we have all this kind of like covering and hiding and concealing and it's okay, it's a royal and therefore tuck away in your palace, I think we have a lot of problems. There's a problem which is the least issue, is the problem for the credibility of the royal family. The greatest issue is, what does this mean? What are you saying to the other victims? And do we know their stories? Now, if Prince Andrew saw anything, let alone was party to anything, he has a duty and a responsibility to come forward and say, I'm cooperating with the police. This is what I saw. This is what I know. And this is any other correspondence that we have. Imagine that. But when you think about I wrote it down here because, I've long been interested in secrecy in the royal family because I had a really difficult time trying to get information out.
Really difficult is an understatement. I mean, there were all sorts of, threats made about pulling your book, right?
Yeah.
About Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria, because I was printing something kind of a little bit juicy about her relationship with her Scottish gilly, John Brown. So it was so difficult to even get those fragments that remain. You become very aware that any proximity to the royal family, there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of censorship, some propaganda. And you have to go, what is in the interests of the people here? So I've pulled this together here. This was, you cannot ask any questions about the royals in the House of Commons or the House of Lords. The Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply directly to the royal family or the royal household because they are not considered public authorities. And there's another section, correspondence with the monarch, the heir to the throne, and the second in line to the throne is absolutely exempt from any of this. So it's all tied up. What if we'd said, can we please have any correspondence between Prince Andrew and any ministers of the Crown regarding Jeffrey Epstein or the rest of the family or so on? It just never comes down on the side of disclosure.
And the irony is that it's designed to protect the royal family, but without it, it's actually doing them more damage, right?
Excellent point. Now, this is what Andrew Lowney said in the London Times. He says, ironically, the very measures designed to protect them from scrutiny are the ones that permit scandals to flourish and suspicions to rise. 20 years ago, MPs were calling for Andrew to be investigated by the National Crime Agency over his time as Special Trade Representative between 2001 and 2011, and that went nowhere. But that case does kind of exist somewhere, apparently, as under the criminal law offence of misconduct in public office. And let's not forget, he's had a bit of a he's had some exposure to and dealings with a man accused of being a Chinese spy as well. So he's actually had a long, unfortunate career of, what should we say, of concerns regarding his conduct.
Judgment? Yeah.
Poor judgment. Poor judgment at best.
That speaks about character.
Correct.
Which is a very valuable commodity when you're a royal.
Yeah. So don't you think? I mean, like, I feel like when we sit down and go, should you be this knight, should be you that? I mean, he's been stripped of all his charities. What we know is that he sits at home in that absolutely enormous place that he's renting for a peppercorn rent right now. He plays video games. He watches television. I mean, is any of this because they've not quite worked out what to do with the spare to the heir? We see Harry. But look, what about Meghan? Absolutely hounded to the ends of the earth. Because
of her recipes.
The recipes and her flower petals.
Over here. I mean, they are absurd. Personally
They're absurd.
Speaking, but like, does it warrant the outrage?
But then you're like,
yeah.
You know.
One silver lining I will say
Yeah.
is just to see this book published. I mean, it is so rare that we see this depth of personal account from a survivor of sexual abuse.
Yes.
Not only, making it public, but to be put into a book as a matter of public record, that these are the words of a woman who's speaking from the grave.
Yes.
And who deserves to have her story heard. Yeah. Even though she's not around to see what the outcome of that might be. I think that's really heartening, actually.
And I think what's really important about this is that it's not just Jeffrey Epstein's story, Virginia Giuffre's story, and it's not just allegedly Prince Andrew's story. This is a story about powerful men who act with impunity and treat women like really sex slaves in this situation, like goods, to be traded amongst yourselves, to be discarded, to be threatened, to be completely controlled, and about systems that can enable them to do that, even after Jeffrey Epstein was already convicted of being a sex trafficker. I think it's incredibly alarming, and I think we should absolutely know everything that we need to know about this, because what we're dealing with is the destruction of children, the destruction of lives.
So, Jules, you know how the coalition, the Liberal Party, are having a bit of an identity crisis?
A little bit.
Particularly since the last election, and trying to figure out what do they stand for, how do they attract voters, having lost a substantial number of seats, particularly on the Liberal side and particularly in cities.
In the cities, yes.
Yep. So there's this group called Hilma's Network. Hilma's Network is a collection of women who identify as conservative and who are interested, and they're knocking on the door of the Liberal Party saying, let us in.
Repeatedly ignored, which is amazing. They're always like, wow, I wonder how we can get more women in.
Yeah.
And there's women going,
over here.
Few suggestions.
Here's some ideas.
Yeah.
Right. So this group called Hilma's Network has done some research which they've shared exclusively with The Australian. And it points to ways in which the Liberal Party can rebuild itself and remodel its policies and representation, who it picks in pre-selection, to run and to attract into the party and to attract public support. So just a little backstory. The Hilma's Network is named after Hilma Molyneux Parkes, who in 1902 was instrumental in helping women get pre-selected into the Liberal Party. And women have a very big history in the Liberal Party, right? And in its formation and development of policies, particularly around family and particularly around Menzies prime ministership.
Exactly. Well, and we don't use the word Hilma enough. What happened to Hilma?
So Hilma, this group is named after Hilma's Network, and they're primarily concerned with helping women
get
into
elected.
politics.
Yep.
So it's not about reaching out to the electorate and attracting voters. It's about getting women pre-selected. And they are saying they want more women in the membership of the Liberal Party because those are the people who will decide who gets pre-selected. So even if you don't want to run yourself, help another woman, help another feminist get elected.
Yeah.
So they've published this research. I want to go through some of the findings with you. It's research conducted by Resolve between the 1st and 5th of September 1,751 respondents with a margin of error of 2.3%. This is all important to say, this is a proper good survey of voters of Conservative women.
We're not making this up.
Here's what they found. More women than men believe that migration levels are too high.
That is interesting.
Female voters think the Liberal Party doesn't represent them and that they want a target of net zero emissions to stay. And this is interesting in the context of where the party is at right now, where the coalition's at.
Right.
Women believe in much greater numbers that population growth should come from incentivising a higher birth rate. So think baby bonus under John Howard.
Maybe, or better childcare.
Yeah. 56% of women say a net zero emissions target is important, so more than half. In the 18 to 54 cohort, there's a greater expectation that the party understand and represent women. So when you go older in the scale, people don't put gender and women's issues, if I can kind of describe it that way, as a precondition of who they elect.
Yeah.
Whereas in
I think as you
younger
go
voters,
older, they would say that there's no such thing as a woman's issue, especially.
Yeah. And more than half of regional and rural voters also support net zero. Now, why is this important? Because the coalition is tying itself in all sorts of knots about how to appeal to a particular sector of voters, how to appeal to women, how to become more relevant in cities. And yet you've got them tearing themselves apart in the sorts of things that they will and won't accept, and calling people who are concerned about these issues woke. And Charlotte Mortlock, who's the executive director of Hilmer's Network, says in this article in The Australian that many women have values that align very well with the Liberal Party. Women will prioritise a party, she says, that can rebuild community and values the family. If they're not Liberal values, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's so close, but it's so far, Jules.
Yeah. What do you think of that whole idea, like, don't call women woke? I find that so strange.
I can't separate it personally as a brown man.
Yeah.
I can't separate it from race because that's where it originates, right? This came out of
exactly.
1960s black communities
To be
describing,
awake.
Lots of issues. And the idea of being woke in that context was to be alive to the issues around you, around particularly race and social justice, at a time when it was really accelerating and there was a lot of velocity behind equal rights and civil rights campaigns in the US. That then kind of became a bit of a buzzword. Maybe it took some of the value away from it, but the idea of being woke is to say, be aware of what's going on around you.
Right.
And respond accordingly if you are not happy with it.
Yes.
But it's been weaponized by certain sectors of the right as something that, if you're woke, you're just being, politically correct, all those sorts of things. And what the term doesn't do is address fundamental issues around grievance of inequality, right? I can't separate it from race, so I find it like it's not only, calling women woke, which is this title of this article, Stop Calling Women Woke, if you want them to get on board, is that it doesn't remove the grievance, the sense of underrepresentation in a party.
Yeah.
But it's also a bit kind of, it's a bit racist, it's a bit misogynist, all wrapped up at the same time.
Something
and it's
for
just
everyone.
not a good look if you're trying to reach out to this sector of voters.
Yes.
Stop
But
kind
it
of insulting them.
underlines the same point that I think Charlotte Mortlock is trying to make, which is women aren't interested in your culture wars. Can you not give us culture wars? And then it's all like, but it's about whether you're woke or not.
But what do you think about this idea? Because I've been thinking about this, that, one of the great successes of John Howard's prime ministership was not that he was, we talk about broad tent and everything like that, broad church. But ultimately, he was very decisive. And I wonder whether they see it as a sign of weakness and to be more Howard-like, to be decisive.
I think we all want decisive leadership.
Yeah.
Just say what you're going to do and do it. And realise not everyone's going to be on your side. I mean, obviously, Susan Lake, she's got an absolute...
It's a very broad church.
Massive challenge in her, to be able to broaden that out there. But you know what I think is one of the failures of the right? George Brandis made this observation a few years back, former Attorney General, which is that they allowed the very idea of human rights to be a left thing. When did that become a left issue? Well, coming out of the Second World War, was only leftists interested in the rights of people who died. What? How? Because that's just a human thing.
Climate change too, right? I mean, how did climate change become a left issue when it's actually a fundamental business
and economic, exactly,
and human rights issue?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same thing has happened with women. To say the word women is often assumed as, oh, that's just you're kind of being woke. Oh, that's kind of a problem. Or to kind of speak about diversity, and I think that's a really fundamental problem. That if you actually tackle that, if you say no, we really need to do something about the number of women in the party. And by the way, we know quotas work. They worked for the ALP. We don't need to go through the figures.
But they had that idea like 10 years ago, didn't they? Quotas.
Oh yeah, well they say we'll have them, but they're not firm. They're not firm targets, which is kind of what they talk about doing with climate change now. We'll pull out of the.
It's the thought that counts.
2050 net zero, but we'll still be committed to it. I mean, what if, imagine being in a relationship with someone pulling out of the vows, but I'm still committed. Okay, that sounds dodge. But again, people are going to be cynical because that is what's happened with women. We're committed to these targets. Well, they're not met. And they still have an absolute paucity of women. It's embarrassing for the Liberal Party in 2025 to be talking about where do women fit in and are women woke.
Okay, so here's the thing, because particularly this net zero issue has been a really difficult one for Susan Lee to manage as leader of the coalition. And One Nation has come knocking and tried to basically, kind of have a crack, particularly notably in this past week with Barnaby Joyce, who's speculated to be speaking with One Nation about possibly not contesting his seat, or he's announced he's not contesting his seat at the next election, New England in New South Wales, but also speculated to be considering a move to One Nation, to be defecting to One Nation.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that in New England, he's got such a huge following that in the seat of New England, the people who would elect him, they're like, go for your life, Barnaby. He's, as Malcolm Turnbull said, great retail politician and has a very strong personal following.
Yeah.
But Susan Lee's inability to bridge that issue really is a problem for the Liberal Party, right?
It's a massive problem, the relationship with the Nationals, her trying to win back the Teals, the paucity of the moderates that are currently in the Parliament now in terms of low numbers. There aren't very many women in there at the moment. She's got an incredibly difficult job. They're going to need elders from the business community, from former party veterans, as well as younger people coming up, the Mortlocks. To say, you know what, like we're getting all these new voters in and younger voters are not supporting the coalition. So they're really going to have to inject themselves with a lot of energy and openness and not rigidity around things like climate.
I found it really interesting in that survey too that a lot of values you would consider very conservative are actually held in greater esteem by women. So things around some form of national service, things like migration. I mean, these are issues that women feel very strongly about. And so you would assume that would sit very naturally with the conservative side of politics, with the coalition, and yet it's not enough to be attracting women to the party.
I don't know. I think they just need they need a lot more senior women sitting down and trying to work this out and making it an actual KPI.
You're talking quotas.
Oh no, I think quotas would absolutely work. I mean, it's if you want that to happen, you put in quotas that will.
But it's always the merit argument, right? Like, but quotas.
Don't get me started on
no, please start, because this is exactly the thing. This is why it gets shot down every single time. We know that the Labor Party did the same thing, and they didn't kind of, set an incredible, target. They kind of went incrementally over a number of years. So we know that change takes time.
Yeah.
But tell me about your response to that, because it gets shot down every single time on the basis that it's not meritorious.
Right. So, but it just means that only white men have merit. It's not true. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And I mean, how did they go in the last election? Was that a meritorious election? Like, what's going on now with this fracture and this splitting? Is that all meritorious? I mean, it's bonkers. There's been review after review after review saying that they, have been treating women as kind of second class, that people in the party tend to promote people who are like themselves. The merit thing's just sheer fallacy. Look, it's in the basic interests of our democracy to have a strong government, a strong opposition. We want a healthy contest of ideas. I think a lot of people feel we're not necessarily getting that right now. It's okay to have dissent and disagreement within a party. But the ultimate challenge, which would benefit all of us, is the cliche of broad church. We do need coalitions and alliances formed at this time, at a time of greater fragmenting and distrust and dislike and not willing to make compromise with each other.
And not opposition for the sake of it as well.
Right.
I think it's really important.
But calling a government to account.
Okay, Jules, time for our surprise pick of the week. What have you got for me?
Okay. So someone came to me on Instagram who listened to the show and said, I thought you and Jez might enjoy this. Jez, I did.
Okay.
I want you to imagine it's in the 1700s, walking along the Thames River in London. Someone has just almost drowned, dragged out of the water. You're like, oh my gosh, you need to revive them. They're unconscious. Pull them out. Happily, there's actually a medical kit just lying just nearby. What would you do?
I don't know, resuscitate them, give them medical treatment, use the medical kit?
Well,
No?
Yes, you would use the medical kit, but what they would do is insert a pipe into the backside.
Oh, no, we're not going here again.
We are. And blow in tobacco smoke.
What?
Yes. That was how they revived unconscious people up the backside. So at first they did it with just a tube and someone would blow into it. They'd have like a suck on the pipe and then they'd blow into it. But they had a few problems because...
I want to breathe in at that point.
That's it. They said if it could have been disastrous to the tobacco smoke blower if the practitioner or medic inadvertently inhaled
Got methane
during
poisoning.
a coughing spell. I don't know. I think they're putting this. I think they're putting this really delicately. Some rice water stools of the cholera flagellates could be aspirated and swallowed. Could be fatal. So don't breathe in.
Sure.
Should one be using a tobacco like enema situation on a passerby?
Enema? To resuscitate someone who's
So
drowning.
it was so successful. They had this scene, 1746, a woman's pulled unconscious and a sailor says, mate, to the husband, you've got to start blowing smoke up her backside.
Is this where the saying comes from? No way.
Yes.
It suddenly all makes sense.
Right, because it irritates your insides. It was meant to warm them up and bring them back. Now, if that didn't work, there were other things they'd shake them vigorously. Bloodletting, which was if you didn't have leeches handy, you would just like make a few cuts and let some blood out. They always did that in Victorian times.
Right.
They were mad. Or red hot irons to the bottom of the feet. Imagine coming to, scalding,
Well, you'd have to. You'd have a few words to say.
jetting out tobacco smoke. This was actually taken, it was a practice that was taken from Indigenous North Americans. You used a lot of tobacco medicinally and like the smoke blowing was actually...
Up the bottom.
Up the bottom. From what I can tell from my rigorous research online.
Right.
They used to use it for easing headaches, cramps, typhoid, cholera, but then by 1811 they realised it wasn't good for the heart.
It wasn't good for anything.
It wasn't good for anyone involved. Now I've got a photo of it for you.
No way.
Not a photo. Hold that up.
Guys, lying face down.
He's literally been
Bottom
dacked.
I would die of shame. That was me.
Now, and everyone's looking around quite anxiously. Someone with a top hat. So there's someone who's got the pipe, someone else with a top hat with a bit long kind of tube.
Has anyone got a light? I need to resuscitate our friend.
And look, that was the equipment. It was so popular. They had it in boxes all the way along the Thames. And I believe the Seine. Big bellows where you could puff it in, which meant that you could get the smoke and
It
puff
looks
it
like
in.
an accordion, basically, with a pointy end, right?
Look, do I love a historical rabbit hole? Yes.
I love that.
However, like the reason that our friend Dan sent this to us is because we were talking about the Ig Nobel Awards where they made this scientific discovery that one way for people to bring in oxygen was to have it pumped up the butt if they were having respiratory failure. And Jeremy's have nightmares. Now I want to add to them of, can you believe that?
I love that.
Blowing smoke up your bottom. That's where it's from.
It's an offer of resuscitation.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Jez. So you're welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Dan for sending that in.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
We'll put some links on our show notes if you want to see the images and have a little think about it.
Have a little think about
Have a little
it.
think. Imagine being revived that way.
Look, if it were to work,
Sure. Great.
However,
Yes. Alarming.
I'd like to see some science first.
What about you, Jez? What have you got?
All right, did you hear about this week the case of a crocodile in a luxury hotel pool in Port Douglas?
No.
So there was this video going around. that
What?
The woman just sort of wakes up one day, she goes down to the pool, and there's a croc at the bottom of the pool in Port Douglas.
Because they're everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've never seen an actual croc in real life. It would give
Yeah.
me the absolute heebie-jeebies. But the signs are everywhere. Like, you go
Yeah.
to North Queensland particularly.
Yeah.
Crocs or jellyfish. Like, one
Yeah,
of them's going to
there's-
get you, stay out of the water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also the ocean, like you see them swimming along there too, which is a nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's this mystery that's been solved this past week, all the way on the other side of the world in Derbyshire. So on Thursday last week, police there did a social media call out saying this. We know this is probably the strangest appeal ever to grace our Facebook page. However, we're appealing for your help in relation to a suspected crocodile that was reported dumped in South Derbyshire. So this was outside the town of Willington in a canal. So similar vibes to your, Thames Canal story.
Yeah.
Near a resort town. A fisherman had reeled this crocodile in, and there was a photograph of it, right?
Right.
So,
And they got dumped?
and police were worried because this is a resort area. Lots of holiday makers, not from the local area,
Yeah.
were concerned about, how a crocodile is managing to survive in these conditions. They're not native to Derbyshire. But over the weekend, mystery solved. The Derbyshire Constabulary announced a member of the public has come forward and explained that the crocodile, do you want to have a guess what it was?
What?
It was a taxidermied crocodile.
No.
Someone's dumped a taxidermied crocodile into the canal. A fisherman's reeled it in, and it's
not-
all kind of like, bloated.
Not
and
noticed
whatever.
it's not even moving?
Well, it was dead. It was definitely dead, and the police were worried.
No, but this is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't he notice this thing's a bit stuffed?
Well, the stuffing's all on the inside, right? So, upon further investigation, found that it was full of hay.
Wow.
And that sort of de-escalated the emergency somewhat. But it reminded me of that story. We talked about it on the pod last year
Yeah.
about the woman who retrieved a baby hedgehog from the side of the road. Remember this
Yeah,
one?
it was a
And she took it
pom-pom.
home and she was trying to revive it and giving it food and
Giving it
water.
food and
in
it
a
didn't
little
move all
cardboard
night.
box.
She was worried
and she was
about
worried
it.
and she called
She went to the vet?
animal helpline.
Oh, she went in?
Yeah.
To the vet?
And they said, I'm sorry, ma'am. This is a pom-pom from a hat. It's one of my favourite stories ever.
So
Ever.
good.
In 25 years of being a journalist.
I
It's
wish
one of my
that someone
favourites.
had filmed that moment. I remember, well, again, we'll put this on our show notes, but there is a photo of the box she had where
Yeah.
she'd been putting milk and ham or something in it. And then this little pom-pom.
I love it. Anyway, it's good for a laugh. In the world that we're in, I just love
Exactly.
that there are people still, kind of fooling around. And
But also credit to
strange
her
things.
for like getting that little pom-pom and taking care of it.
Yes.
Really good care of it for
And
a
same
night.
with the Derbyshire Police being
Yes.
really rigorous in making sure that, they were taking care of any perceived danger to the community.
Yes.
But taxidermy crocodiles, not really up there.
Not quite as rigorous as a 18th century smoke blower.
No.
A resuscitator. Oh, imagine living in those times.
Jules, very nice to catch up.
So good to see you.
Our producers are Madeline Jenner and Cinnamon Nippard. Thank you for your company. Great to catch up with you again, Jules.
See you next week.
See you next week.